Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of One Vision. This is Theo and Steph, your host for the episode. Joining both of us today is a wonderful friend of ours, Kathryn Kmiotek, marketing transformation and strategy leader, and most recently, one of the 30 most influential marketers of 2024. Round of applause, congrats, and welcome to the show, Kathy.
I'm blushing because I think that's the first time I've heard it as an introduction. So thank you.
We need to keep repeating this until it's ingrained in everyone's brain. Congrats. So now,
Thank you.
this is like, I was going to ask you, like, what did you do to celebrate? Please tell me. You guys did something fun.
I didn't do anything fun. It's New York City FinTech. Well, it's the end of New York City FinTech Week this week, and I also was not able to make the meetup for that particular group because I was on calls a little bit late. So I will celebrate this weekend. I promise.
You should.
I will
And
definitely celebrate it this weekend.
okay, well, next time when we see each other, we'll celebrate with you. If I could have actually had a babysitter, well, not babies anymore, like a caretaker for my two kids, I would have come up and celebrated with you. I missed FinTech Week. It looks like you guys had an amazing time. So that's wonderful. That's like the one thing I'm always so jealous. There's always something going on in the city.
Oh, there is. Can't catch up. I can't catch up.
Right?
And
It's like every
I live
week.
in suburbia now, and every time I'm like, oh, I still wish I lived in the 5 boroughs, and I still wish I was in Queens. It would make my social life, from an industry perspective, a lot easier.
Right? Exactly. There's something to be said about that.
Well, I think we should just go ahead and celebrate Kathy on the podcast right now. I mean, it's early. All I have is water, but cheers to you, girl. We're super excited.
Oh, I have water as well, so cheers.
I need my espresso. Cheers. I will get that. But seriously, this is amazing. We will properly celebrate as well. We'll figure it out. But let's do time travel for a little bit. So you've been working for quite a while, which is always fun because now you collect different experience from different companies and places and people that you work with. What are some of the most significant changes that you've seen, good, bad, in the industries and in the companies that you've been with?
So I am a marketer, and being a marketer, I've also transitioned through a number of different industries, primarily having started in publishing and media, being in insurance for a little while, and then making the switch finally into financial services via payments, i.e. fintech. So what have I seen change? When I started, I was primarily all in paper. Remember those days of writing a memo and distributing them? Remember those yellow envelopes into intra-office envelopes?
I think I still see those.
Oh, you do? I feel like they're really like a dinosaur.
Oh, no. We live in the dinosaur part of the world here.
And so I remember starting out in that place, right? Lotus Notes 1, 2, 3, right? That
Lotus Notes 1, 2, 3.
More DOS-based world.
Remember
Anyhow,
those printed
I'm
paper?
dating myself now.
The printed paper that you have to load the dot matrix. I don't know how old everyone is,
Yes.
but I still remember those. And
remember
oh my God, the wide papers. Yes.
And so what hasn't changed, I almost feel like saying, right? Even the tools and technology as a marketer has changed. Payments has changed from, as a consumer, I remember the knuckle busters, my parents using that in stores, actually not really even having a credit card, right? Being more cash based. I've seen so much change over the course of the last 20 plus years of my career, for sure, in how consumers want to be spoken to and interact to. But then some of the things remain the same, right? Not everything that's new is just shiny and new all the time. What's old is new and what's new is old. And I find that has stayed with me throughout my career, starting in direct mail, for example, as a marketer, really in subscriptions, what the cadence is to really develop an audience and target an audience, and make sure you're meeting your customer where they're at. That existed prior to digital media. It was just a lot more cumbersome. It took a lot more time. And I think you see that across when you speak about any industry, how manual everything was, how much slower things were. And so we've sped up. And sometimes in the speeding up, though, we've lost some of the proper cadence and I hate to use the phrase due diligence, but some of the due diligence that we should be doing as responsible stewards to our industries or to our crafts, right? In the hopes of moving faster. So there's good and there's bad. We're moving faster, it's great. Our expectations are a lot more instant, but there is something to be said about, not always giving into instant gratification and that side of the brain as well, right? It teaches you a level of empathy, self-control, and those are things that are cross-functional when you're looking at industry or your own craft. So I gave you a little mix of the good, the bad, the timeline, the dating myself.
I can't believe we went all the way back to Lotus Notes.
I know.
Facts.
Believe it or not, I was a receptionist at the chief librarian's office at Hunter College City, University of New York, calling out my city public university folks. And I used to work there part-time as I was going to school. And we had Lotus Notes, and I remember playing in it, setting up all these different things. It was wonderful. Wonderful time of discovery.
Hey, Steph, if you want to date ourselves, I remember growing up with the phone that you have to dial, the rotary phone. And back then, we did not have call waiting. So I remember the one thing my parents were always doing is, okay, it's 5 minutes. You need to get off the phone because people could be calling. So I am dating myself.
I remember I think we literally had one at my house up until I was a teenager, and we were like moving to the States, living in Haiti. So I have vivid memories of that.
We need to remind our children how lucky they are. Not only they didn't have to go through that, now they can talk to their friends anytime, anywhere that they want, even when they're outside of their house, and they can stream their favorite content anytime. What's the whole concept of having to wait that episode once a week at the exact same time you had to sit in front of the TV?
Well, how about the time before being able to record it, right? The
my God.
right? Getting the new shiny whatever it was, beta track, that is, and then VHS, and if you were that lucky, right? So if your family had the ability to afford that as well, cable non-existent, right?
Yeah.
It was a
And the thing turns off, all the programs turns off at night. I grew up in Hong Kong, so at midnight we had God Save the Queen. That's literally what comes on until the next morning. We just have a still screen with the flag, and it just plays God Save the Queen the whole night. That's it.
yes, or the popcorn, or not the popcorn, but that sound, that white noise sound.
Oh,
Anyhow,
the white noise. The black and white noise. Oh my God. Sorry,
Yeah.
we're totally deviating from what we're going to talk about.
We've come a long way in innovation.
I mean, think about Amazon and just what you order, and it can be here same day without having to leave your house, get in your car, or get on the subway or walk, right? It will be here.
You didn't have to go store to look for it,
Nope.
right? So, Steph, there was something you wanted to ask Kathy about.
Yeah, so I was really curious, Kathy. We'd love to hear a little bit more about your origin story as it relates to your career in marketing. Like, when and how did you find out that marketing was like truly going to be your path? I know it's something that you're not just passionate about as a professional, but you're a really good marketer, and you're awesome as what you do, and you've gotten recognized in the industry for it. So when and how did you find out that that was your superpower?
I'm going to sound like also a payments person. I kind of landed into both, but I landed into marketing. I started out going back to Hunter College, my public university days. I started out as a pre-med student and thinking that I wanted to be a doctor. I had this dream and this passion of helping, especially children. I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician, and I went to Hunter College. I started down the path, was a chemistry minor, psychology major, and was taking pre-med classes. What happens? I get to organic chemistry. And that is the differentiator for everybody that goes into most medical field jobs. Orgo took me out. I was like, nope, this is not for me. Not doing it. Don't want to do it. In the interim, then I was like, well, what do I do now? I don't have to be a psychology major, but I took enough chemistry to still keep my minor. And I had this moment of, what's my career look like? And I really didn't know. I love languages. And so I was taking French. At the time, I was much more fluent in Italian than I am today. And I consider myself native a Spanish speaker, even though I'm US born. And so I was like, maybe I can do something with languages. I'll be a UN translator. The beauty of youth and ideals. And I had started taking a course at Hunter for translation in hospitals. And so I did do translation at Bellevue Hospital in New York City as part of that program in particular. And then I even went through that program and became trained the translator, right? And I was doing this all while I'm ending my pre-med. I still have to figure out what major I'm doing, thinking that languages might be the thing, and translating, and discovering that when I was in the hospital, it was a great idea for me not to become a doctor. It was also not the path I wanted to go down as a translator, because those are very hard messages that you're delivering as a translator as well. And so the very empathetic side of me had a very hard time with the emotional part of it. And so recognizing that, I happened to take a course in media and communications, and I was like, I'm going to do this. I will take this. I will follow this major through. I needed to keep working. I pretty much worked throughout my entire college career, and I knew that I would have to intern, but I could not really intern without getting paid. And so I went through the Hunter Career Office, and I found an internship with a publishing company that was paid. It was $10 an hour at the time. So started out as a receptionist at $4.25 an hour when that was the minimum wage, moved up to $7.75, and then I moved on to $10 an hour as an intern at a company called Capital Publishing. And that's what started my marketing career, because it was in their marketing department and their advertising area. And who knew? I discovered magazines and I discovered advertising. I had not yet discovered the part of media and publishing that I would live in for a good portion of my career, which was consumer marketing or subscription marketing. That came probably 2 years after that internship. But yes, I landed in marketing in a very roundabout way. I've gone through a variety of, I'm a multi-marketing expert, meaning I've worked through subscription marketing. I've been on the advertising side. I focused also on negative option. So sort of if you remember the Columbia House CD model day, right? That's so negative option marketing. I've worked in really risk type marketing focused areas like insurance, where you have to be compliant and really work with your legal a lot more. So it's been it was a journey into marketing, and it continues to be a journey in marketing, because even landing in payments, I came into the channel side of marketing, which was kind of going back to the sales world, which I had intentionally left when I joined the subscription marketing group in publishing. So things can be cyclical in marketing as well. But long story long, I fell into it, and it's been quite a journey, and I've enjoyed thoroughly being a marketer and getting to know the different audiences and resonating with some of those audiences as well, because there is you have to find that connection to the people that you're speaking to, because at the end of the day, whether it's a business or an individual, you are speaking to someone. So that's my marketing story. I'm sticking to it.
I love it. From pre-med to multilingual translator to media and comms advertising. Fascinating. I'm learning all sorts of things I did not know about Kathy today. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's a journey.
Shifting gears for a sec. So I know that our connection, Kathy, is through Paytech Women from a few years ago. And since we've connected, you have grown and now you're on the board of Paytech Women. You know, we also have another connection through Money 2020 Rise Up, a program that we both have gone through. And now you're a part of the leadership group for Money 2020 Rise Up and also for Amplify. And I'm really curious to hear how being involved in these types of organizations have impacted your career and where you are today.
Oh my gosh. So yes, we're connected through all these positive things, and I have to give you specifically a shout out, and I do this whenever I speak about my journey in Paytech Women and Rise Up. So you and also Genevieve Dozier, a special shout out, because both of you really set the stage for so many women like myself as you started to shine, as you started to speak, coming out of Rise Up and being part of Paytech Women, really not holding back your voice. And that was inspirational to me in particular. And so when we connected at Paytech Women, I was having I guess a fan moment. I was like, "Hi, Stephanie. We've connected on LinkedIn, and we're part of the same, industry now." But it was introducing myself to you. So thank you wholeheartedly for being that example. So that's my moment of gratitude especially for both of you. From the impact, right? Paytech Women really welcomed me into the industry. I was coming from no payments background, not knowing anybody really in the industry, being given the opportunity to work at TSYS because of my marketing acumen. And it was great to be welcomed into Paytech Women and finding that niche, right? Paytech Women really started my journey into what I call blooming. I always considered myself a late bloomer. I kind of do things at my own time. I just walked you through how I got into marketing, and that took time as well. So I kind of worked through things in my own time, and Paytech Women helped with that. The start of the bloom, being under really good leadership at TSYS as well, helped with that because they facilitated over to Paytech Women and really starting to sort of take in the different women that were there to help. And that was what resonated the most, the accessibility of these women. They weren't just talking the talk. It wasn't just a check the box moment. And there are some of those that you'll find along the way in any organization. But for the most part, my experience was we're here to talk the talk, walk the walk, and really highlight and showcase women in this industry and lift them up. And so anytime I reached out to anyone, it was always a welcome conversation. And that made me want to volunteer. It made me want to learn more. And I learned a lot about payments through so many of these interactions. As a non-payments, traditional payments person, right? Not really starting in the industry, there was a lot I had to catch up to from just understanding some of the ins and outs. I didn't need to be the expert, but I needed to know enough to ask questions and really marry together the marketing and the payments, right? And so that's what Paytech Women did for me. Rise Up and Amplify, was that next step. Rise Up became more about how do I find my voice? How do I take that next step? I was feeling really uncomfortable with changes that were happening in the industry, in the company that I was at. I was feeling a little bit invisible sometimes. And so working through that and in trying to elevate as a professional, which was also helping me personally at the same time. There was a point in time in my life, I was a very, very much so a New Yorker. I said what I wanted. I talked to anyone, and I still did. But somewhere in the course of my career, I started to sort of clam up and feel like I needed to fit a certain persona. And that wasn't innately me. And so Rise Up really started to represent that voice. And I remember Stephanie speaking to the room and kind of saying, this will be an impactful moment. You will go through a journey over the course of these 2-3 days. And it was. And so that really helped start to bring out my voice. At the same time, Amplify had just launched. And even though we were separate, I was curious. I wanted to understand more what the differentiator was. And I love the fact that it was really speaking to underrepresented groups, having been part of an underrepresented group as a woman, but also as a Latina. At one time I was also very overweight. So understanding that journey as well, so from a group representation. And Amplify really made me curious. So I became very involved in, and very, very much so enamored with the goal of that program. And I continue to be. I think, they've set standards that in the fintech community that weren't there before. They've really put measurement to success, not just as a guideline, but more as a very targeted metric in terms of how they want to represent, whether it's in the larger show or as part of this program. And so it's impacted me from finding my voice, really helping me speak up, and just being the person that I wanted to see, right? I didn't see other Latinas, or if they were there, maybe they weren't as visible or as vocal. And so seeing that, I figured, let me be that person, even though, I'm not a full-time extrovert. I know that might come as a shock, and I do get really uncomfortable with change. And being part of Paytech Women, being part of Rise Up and Amplify has really helped me transition through a lot of that, and then also meet so many amazing people. That feeling of being alone, of being the only, of not being what's the norm, we'll call it. It doesn't feel so lonely anymore. And I also starting to see more and more people become vocal, become visible. And so it's that legacy of visibility that I feel like I want to leave as I, in the future, not anytime soon, exit this industry.
So much of what you just said resonates. I still remember the first time I did a presentation at Finovate. It wasn't even on main stage. That was the first time I spoke to bankers. It was a private luncheon that we organized because we published a brand new report on fintech innovation for adults. And it was a project with Javelin. And so we did a private lunch and we were presenting the findings. And I remember that feeling walking into the room. I was the only woman in the entire room of 30 bankers, men, all sitting there staring at me. I'm like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? Now, I'm not shy with being in the company of mostly men, but that was so intimidating. I remember I couldn't speak. That was the only time I still remember in my entire career. I froze and I turned to Mark and I'm like, Mark, you need to present this. He was he's my wonderful friend from Javelin. I'm like, I can't do this. I couldn't speak. And it was scary because I remember I was feeling like, wait a minute, why am I the only woman in here? And second of all, I'm the only Asian too. It was just like a room of 30 white men in suits staring at me. That was my wake up. This was back in, I wanted to say 2015. That was my wake up call. Like, oh, wow, I thought I had it bad in tech. There's nothing compared to banking. So I am glad to see there are more voices. I still don't see too many Chinese, but we'll fix it one person at a time, I guess. But I'm glad. I'm looking at you too. I see Stephanie. I see you, Kathy, and the three of us from three different places, from three different backgrounds. And we're all, here recording an episode about an industry that we're all in, that we like, that we enjoy, that is not perfect, but we'll make it better. And I think that is the promise of what technology can do. That's the promise of what humans can do, good humans. And I would love to see more good humans. So thank you. Thank you for both of you for fighting the good fight. God knows there are so many days I just want to just get a bucket of ice cream and hide in the basement and not come out. but thank you. Thank you. Now, switching gear a little bit, let's talk about future payments, since that's where both of you two are. Steph, I remember when I quote unquote met you first on Twitter, that was what was so intriguing about you. Payments. I'm like, wait, what? Oh, interesting. So we talk a lot about future of payments. We talk a lot about future payments on panels. People write a lot about future payments in articles. I am curious to know, Kathy, how would you define, if someone asks you, what is the future of payments? What does that even mean? And what would get you the most excited? Because at the end of the day, is money changing hands? So what's interesting about it?
So I'm going to quote actually an article that Nicole Casperson wrote, just one quote. Humanizing payments is no longer a choice, but a mandate. And that is the future of payments. It's money is a very emotional thing, but it's also one of those things that are also not entirely understood, even though transacting is something that we do on a daily basis. Everyone of all socioeconomic backgrounds, of all cultures, of all backgrounds. So there is a humanization of payments that needs to exist. This is not just about automation. It's not just about who has access to that automation as well. And so it's the humanization, it's the accessibility, it's the inclusion, it's the education. So the future of payments is not reserved for one group, but it's global and it's all encompassing. And as payments, and then as you look at fintech, where fintech is really where you can move through that inclusivity of payments or of financial inclusion. There's so much that's happening, right? We speak about, so I'll say embedded payments, right? Embedded has been the buzzword for a while, but it's really about meeting your customers where they're at, making sure that it's easy and invisible, but at the same time that it's accessible. And how do you get to that? There are so many different modalities of payment as well that we go through, but I think it's the education part is the part that excites me the most. The education that drives towards inclusivity as well, because you need that. You need those product builders that bring that to the table. And so I'm the marketer, right? But as a marketer, I see things as being a complete experience, right? It's not just about leads. It's not just about the end user. It's about the complete experience for the end user, the complete experience of that end user through your product and the accessibility to that. And so I'd love to hear Stephanie, what excites Stephanie? Because I love hearing Stephanie speak about payments. She has such a great vision of payments. It really inspires me.
Thank you for putting me on the spot, y'all.
She's the goddess of payment. That's literally what she is. So Steph.
Yes, she is. She absolutely is.
Now I gotta live up to all this hype. I'm gonna say two things that I know I'm excited about. Just having grown up in the money transfer world for the majority of my career, just seeing all the latest innovations in P2P and also in the cash to cash world is very exciting to me personally. Just looking at some of the innovations that are coming out of even the larger companies like the Western Unions, where I started my career, the MoneyGrams and all their competitors, and seeing how fintech has played a phenomenal role in revolutionizing the P2P payments platforms through like the Venmos and the Cash Apps, even through WhatsApp now, making it easier and more cost effective for people to send money to their loved ones is what I'm excited about. And y'all know I come from Haiti. That's where I was born and raised. And having worked at Western Union for several years and managed that business and see how it's grown and evolved over the years. And even with today, with all the political issues that are happening in Haiti right now, where, you know, banks are only open for 2 hours at a time on certain days because of safety issues down there with all of the civil and political unrest. Having access to innovation to help people access their money on their phones, where they can go and they can pay for groceries, or they can have access to the bank for that 1 hour period that it's open a day to get their cash to go and pay for school for their kids, or to go get groceries or pay the light bill, is like literally helping lives, right? Helping people with their day to day. So I'm excited about those innovations and grateful for countries where people can access them, because they're not accessible everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So that's important. I think the second thing I'm excited about is biometric authentication for payments. There's a company that came through my last cohort at ICBA called Trust Stamp. They're based in Atlanta. I'm going to encourage folks to look them up, Trust Stamp. And they do privacy first, what they call privacy first identity verification through biometrics, right? And this is using like facial recognition and iris scan to verify that you are who you say you are. Like right now, one of the most common ways of proving who you are for like your bank account or to approve payments is through like a text message. Click on this link, you receive this ID code. Well, hackers can do that too, right? And they can access those codes. So latest innovation in biometrics of verifying who you say you are through like a facial recognition or a fingerprint or through the iris scans, I think are really going to be a game changer for our industry. So I'm excited to see more come out of that part of payments for sure.
I love that you touched on those two, the biometrics being one that I feel like people, when I say people, I mean maybe non-payment people are more risk averse, or not risk averse, but they're averse to it because people like, oh, it's biometrics, it's my fingerprint, or it's my face.
But you can't replicate.
Meanwhile, that's the most secure, right? Like it can't be replicated. And by the way, we're doing it all the time already. Anytime I want to go into my phone, I use fingerprint. So fingerprint, right? Delta now. You can go and essentially get on your flight with facial recognition. So I love that. That's where that's where some of the pieces of education I think need to meet the consumer and the technology. And then the P2P, like, you know, my background is Ecuadorian Mexican. My mom was from Ecuador, and I remember the days of her going to Jackson Heights, Queens, to a specific travel agency called Delgado, which still exists, I think. And that's the way that they sent stuff and they sent money, because there wasn't like the postal system that we have here. There isn't they would send Western Union, but they still trusted sending it through that travel agency in a package.
Yep.
More than through any kind of financial service at all. So what you said there resonated with me 1000% in terms of how far have we come. And then the adoption, though. Think about the adoption in Haiti. I think about the adoption in Ecuador. Think of in Latin America of technology because of our mobile devices. How them not having certain infrastructure to lean on, like we have in the US, has enabled them to actually move a lot faster in adopting some of these inclusive financial systems, we'll call them. So I love that you touched on both. See, that I love Stephanie. She gets me going. She gets me thinking.
She does. And I think what the two of you describe is that it's easy for us to forget access is a privilege, because we have access to so many resources. We have access to convenience in life that it's easy to forget it's not a commonplace and we take it for granted. I think that's why I love when we talk to startups. I often look at the founders first before I look at what they do, because who the founders are and their lived experience can speak a lot to how they are going to steer the company, who they would serve, more so than, the business model. You can always coach them changing the business model, but you cannot coach them on empathy. That's something that they gain through the people they interact with, through the childhood, through their families and circles. So, did I say I love you both? I did. Okay. I'm going to say it again. Thank you.
Love you too.
Love you right back.
Group hug. Before we close, looking back, I do want to ask, and something that we have asked a few people, and it's very interesting what they often reflect on, is knowing what you know now. Kathy, would you have changed anything, knowing the path you've gone through? And by the way, I chuckled when you talk about OrChem because my major is chemical engineering. So I did live through organic chemistry 1, 2, 3, and thermodynamics and all of those wonderful stuff that I absolutely did not know how to do now. But knowing what you know now and the changes in path that you have navigated to where you are today, what would you have advised your future self or someone else starting their career? What would you tell them?
So fun fact, I did leave chemistry behind, but I married a chemist. So let me just lead in with that. He's a chemistry teacher now, but he's a chemist by profession. So didn't get away from it too much. But going back to the question, what would I have changed? There is always the woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? We look back and we say, if I would have done that, or I could have done that, or I should have done that, right? Put it in woulda, coulda, shoulda in New York terms, right? There will always be that. And I think recognizing maybe some of those areas that you woulda, coulda, shoulda sort of helps inform how you move forward. And so there are things in my journey of asking more for myself, right? It's still something that I struggle with. I'm more likely to ask for somebody else than for myself, but it's recognizing it. And so recognize those things as things that are good, that propel you, because you're able to observe them and you're able to recognize them and you are able to work on them. Understand that so many things in your life, in your career, will change over time. We spoke about where we started with knuckle busters and payments, right? Lotus 1, 2, 3, to where we are today and all things AI, right? To throw the buzzword, the buzz phrase in here, generative AI, to really throw in the phrase. And change is inevitable, and so it will be uncomfortable. It will not make you happy. It doesn't for me. I like to kind of have my routine and be set in it, and it gets a little hard. But think about if it doesn't happen, then you kind of stay stagnant. And to someone starting their career, just own your voice, own your career. You are your own best advocate. You are the one that understands your own goals. Other people will not. And so if you do not voice them, if you're not unapologetic about them either, you kind of need to be a little selfish when it comes to your voice in your career. And so you be the driver of it. And that's probably a hard lesson I've learned over the course of my career and continue to learn, right? Not perfect here. I'm still a work in progress, like as I think everyone is through their lifetime. And don't get caught up in the busyness. I know for me, that's been something that being constantly busy and constantly needing to do something or being tasked with something feels like I'm actually doing something, but is it really? And so asking yourself that, does this really serve a purpose? And does it serve a purpose for me in my career? Will it help me grow? It's that, will it matter 5 minutes from now, 5 hours from now, 5 years from now? Like, ask yourself that consistently, and that will help inform you of really its value.
I love what you've said. Like, I'm a big believer in the fact that you are the CEO of your career. You're in the driver's seat. Like, nobody's coming to save you. Like, figure it out. Like, make the decisions, speak your voice. And we all learn it, right? We didn't grow up this way. We had to learn the hard way to speak up for ourselves. So that's why I'm so grateful, for groups like Pay Tech Women, for Money 2020 Rise Up, for other, a bunch of other folks within my network that have supported me in this and have helped me find my voice. to be able to be more outspoken and speak up for myself, speak up for next step. So I love that. And then you also talked about taking the time to recharge, which I think is so important too, like the busyness part of it. We always want to be busy because it's that perception of getting stuff done, but it's so important to take the time to recharge. Like,
Oh yeah.
We're just talking about spring break. Like I literally just got back from spring break. I tapped on an extra 2 days to recharge without the husband and without the kids in the house as my self-care. And one thing that I've started doing now is when I'm on vacation, I literally delete Outlook and Teams from my cell phone. So I'm not tempted to check in with work. I'm not a surgeon. It's payments, it's innovation, it's fintech. Nobody's gonna die. It'll be okay.
It's funny you say that. I say that also. We're not curing anything here. It will get done, but we're not here curing anything. So enjoy your time off, your moments off, your time with your family. That's the most valuable. That actually, looking back, that's probably the biggest lesson is time, right? Time is never given back. And so value your time. Be selfish. Be selfish with it. And actually, selfish is probably not the right word. It's your time. Value it. Period.
Jinx, value it. I literally told someone recently, I said, there will not be lack of request of your time, but know that there's a value attached to it. So I love that time is never given back. I literally just wrote that. Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Steph, my wonderful partner in crime. And thank you for answering my WhatsApp messages during your off time. You are my you and Barb are my support pillars and therapists. So thank you. And enjoy the time, Kathy. We need to find time for the three of us to get together, perhaps sometime in New York. We will make it happen.
Yeah.
And we will properly celebrate. But till then, congratulations again. And thank you. And for the rest of our listeners, hope you gained something from it. I know I always do, chatting with people, but especially today, I have 4 pages of notes. I write when people talk. So thank you, Professor Kathy. I learned something from you today. And hopefully everyone did and gained something from the conversation. And we will talk to you all next week. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of One Vision.